And from Europe to Africa, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is having dire consequences around the globe. That includes in Chad, where the war, thousands of miles away, combined with severe drought, is causing food prices to soar. Chadians already suffer one of the world's highest levels of hunger, with more than 2 million people estimated to be hungry. Special correspondent Willem Marks recently went to Chad, where he found entire famished communities struggling to survive.
Happy eyes but hungry mouths. Several dozen children live in this family compound, but recently there's food for just one daily meal. A morning morsel of fried bread dipped in sweet green tea, eaten at speed. Yusuf Ibrahim Abdurrahman is father to 9 here and grandfather to several more. God will decide his family's fate, he insists, but Yusuf does what he can to stave off their hunger.
If you earn a living day by day, you eat whatever you get. Sometimes you don't get anything to eat for a day. Sometimes you are able to buy food for the whole day. Sometimes for half a day. That is how it goes.
What we ask are the consequences for his young children.
When it comes to the kids, you have to make do. What little food you have, you put it aside for them. You forget about yourself. When there is enough food, you eat together. Otherwise, you just give it to them.
In recent months, food prices have risen sharply in this town of 50,000 called Musuru and right across the African nation of Chad. Russia's invasion of Ukraine resonating painfully even here among those already accustomed to acute shortage.
Everything is more expensive. Pasta, flour, rice, millet, everything is more expensive.
Alhaj Adoum Berkadai is president of the town's Chamber of Commerce and has worked as a trader for the past 40 years. We ask him the reasons for these recent price spikes.
In the past, prices increase after the rainy season, but these past few months, the Ukraine-Russia conflict made everything expensive.
C'est très simple, c'est ça. So what he's saying is that this entire room would normally be filled with either flour or sugar, and because of the Ukraine war, it's now completely empty.
We're facing great difficulties, particularly relating to food. Despite the price increase, we've managed to import some, but what's the point if people are not able to buy it? We will end up with stocks of unsold product and go out of business.
Economic activity in remote communities like this largely centers on food, and in this landlocked country, a lot is imported. But the 15-day truck journey south across the Sahara from Libya relies on affordable fuel, also now in short supply. The local mayor invited us to tour the town's main market, where some food still sits in the stalls, but shoppers are scarce. At Musuru's only bakery, bread still leaves the oven as reliably as the sun rises. But there are fewer buyers for these baguettes than before, and business is suffering badly. Mohamed Tahir and his friend Saleh start early each day, together with their team, stacking loaves deep onto trucks, piling bread high onto bikes. But their flour costs have nearly doubled this year, forcing their prices higher too.
Now we have fewer customers. We sell less than usual. Sales have dropped hugely. We sell far less bread.
The two men work morning to midnight, but Mohammed says it's still not enough.
It's not profitable for the bakery now. We're continuing to function just to avoid closing down. The company is not making any profit.
Across town, at a less commercial collective established with overseas help, local women grind nuts, corn and salt into an enriched flour that helps prevent malnutrition.
Malnutrition isn't just affecting newborn babies. Women, children, they're all malnourished, and it's for that reason that we're making flour.
One worker, Mariam Musi, tells us hunger kills kids in Chad, particularly in rural villages. At a distribution centre in one such community, Chabaka, there's no price put on life, just a limit placed on food. Less than £90 of grain per month for each of these 500 families, from 6 surrounding settlements. They sit and wait for their rations among crops that cannot grow fast enough to meet their current desperate needs. Mothers tested for fever that could indicate COVID-19. Their babies then measured for signs of malnutrition. In Chad, the UN says 1.3 million children lack sufficient food, while 2 in every 5 suffer from stunted growth. Price increases helping to push those numbers even higher.
This first quarter compared to the first quarter 2021, if you look at millet, in some areas the prices increased by 15%. If you look at sorghum, you're looking at an increase of over 40%. But when you look at beans in some part of the country, we have an increase of almost up to 96%, almost double.
Enrico Pausili is the deputy country manager for the UN's World Food Programme here and says it doesn't take much to devastate the population of a country like Chad.
A little shock actually can cause incredible distress to the populations, be economic or in terms of food security and malnutrition.
Back in Chabagar, the World Food Programme's local partner is led by Sadiq Mohamed Rosi. Charming, cajoling and checking the several hundred families receive the supplies they've been promised.
It's been worsening since 2010, but now with the situation in Ukraine, it's getting even worse. Each harvest, the crisis is increasing. The number of malnourished children is increasing.
The worst drought in a decade meant last year's harvest failed for many, meaning months later households have very little left for this fallow period known as the lean season. Their annual struggle to survive made even worse by a distant war. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Willem Marks in Chabagar, Chad.